All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. We're getting to the end of the school year. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and educator, as well as a gold product expert for the Google for Education team. And today I have on my show Miss Lisa Richardson and Miss Jessie Erickson. How are you girls?
Hello, fine, thank you.
Good. So today we are going to be talking about Azobot. We are all Azobot certified educators, and we are all wearing our swag. So let's show off our swag. Woohoo! Azobot. All right.
Got my hashtags back here. Be Ozosome.
Be Ozo awesome.
Be Ozosome and hashtag Ozo love.
There you go. I love it. So what I'm going to do first is I don't usually have like multiple guests on the show, as I explained to you girls before. So we are going to take turns speaking. So I would like to introduce Ms. Messi Erickson. She is a district assessment coordinator for the Grand Forks Public Schools. And she has a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and a specialist diploma in educational leadership. And she does a lot with, she had the opportunity to work with students and staff as a teacher, building resource coordinator, instructional coach, and curriculum technology partner with the Grand Forks Public Schools and Grand Forks Air Force Base and school districts. That's a lot. So that sounds like, you had your hands full there. Jessie, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, it's just a privilege always to work and learn with teachers and learners of all ages. It's just a great job, and I'm always pushing myself to learn new things. Just like Lisa, I read Lisa's bio as well, and it sounds like we have that in common. We're just eager learners and always pushing ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And Lisa Richardson, she's been teaching high school math for 19 years, and she's currently teaches math models with applications and advanced quantitative reasoning at Clearbrook High School in
Way
Texas.
fancier. Yeah, AMDM is what it's called around the country. Only in Texas is it called AQR.
AQR. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. So you are really, I can see where your mind comes into using coding and robots and stuff because you have that mathematical.
Well, that's where my justification to admin comes in originally, because a lot of admin don't buy into it, or teachers don't see the connection, and it's like coding is order of operations, like end of story. There's no other basic principle kids don't need, and so that's originally Ozobot was how I really wanted to bring coding into my classroom. It kind of got me started on studying for CS and all that kind of stuff.
And it's all computational thinking, isn't it? Loops and all those things. That's all computational thinking.
Well, and not even like I haven't even gotten to the point. I love the fact that with Ozobot, you actually don't have to use tech. You can use markers, paper, and Ozobot, and you're still covering all that stuff just because we were a one-to-one district, but it didn't work that way always. And with the hurricane, it did not work that way. 1 year. So I love the fact that all you need is 4 markers in an Ozobot, and you can make an entire major grade lesson. Yeah, but still coding. Awesome. Right. Yeah. And covering those topics.
And it's funny because you're a high school math teacher. You're not even elementary or middle school. Like I'm a middle school technology.
Which is weird.
Yeah. So you find that it's not too easy for the students in high school.
Okay. So if you teach in high school, you will learn. Kids still need the basics. Kids still have to go back. I know that we're supposed to start at certain TEKs, but they still need to go back to one-step equations. They slept over the summer, and we still cover all those basics. And no, I actually have it fully integrated into a quadratics worksheet. So I've been able to bring it up there because a lot of Ozobot activities for higher level are in fact for geometry, which I do have a major grade geometry one. So being able to work it into algebra, but it's all about following directions and order of operations and troubleshooting and learning, and all of that is valuable. And in Texas, we have something called process standards. So it's like, pick a tool, create a game plan. It's like I think it's one of the major ISTE or CSTA guidelines. That's actually kind of some of our process standards. It covers all that. So no, they enjoy it. I introduced it before Spiros because it does change some stuff, but it just does different things. So I just started coding this year with them. I was going to do it, but the break hit. But I was able to do a coding activity with them remotely.
With the markers.
No, they didn't have Ozobots. Like we left school not knowing we weren't coming back. I did it with Shape Tracer. So I just had them do Shape Tracer. So even if kids don't have the robot, my kids were able to make the connection. They were like, oh, it was so different than what we did, but then they still had something that they related back to that they used hands-on. So coding was going to be my goal this year. And well, the virus hit.
Postponed, that's all.
Yeah. So that's right. They have a lot more to do now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's interesting because, like I'm in middle school and I think it's okay for the students to use the Ozo codes with the markers and all that. But when you look at it from an administrative point of view, they sometimes think that it's too elementary. And I particularly don't agree with that. And it's interesting for me to hear your perspective at the high school level.
Well, one of the things I'll do, especially if somebody comes in to observe me on an Ozobot day, is I always tell them to look at spin and tornado. And what do y'all notice? Well, they're different. So you have to worry about, order of operations. Well, that's on level, but hand-eye coordination, stuff like that, they have to be precise, they have to be accurate, and that's where the markers come in. It's too fat, it's too skinny, it's not working. And to me, it's like valuable real life skills. And that's what I tell. My admin is very supportive. I'm very, very lucky as far as that goes. But they make those connections. So I try and give them that kind of like real life and something different. And sometimes it's just a motivation tool, but it's what they need in order to be successful. And that's what I'm lucky about. But I agree, a lot of teachers are like, I don't know how to use this, I don't know what I'm going to do. And like even today I came up with a activity for multiple choice where they have to code it to the multiple choice activity, and I presented that today. That can work in any level for any grade, but on mine they had to do like angles and distance and stuff. And there's a great cross-curricular activity you could do in history, and bring something in, because coding is important. But I have all the correct verbiage to show my admin if they ever had questions, but they don't. They are very supportive. They share my donors chooses. I'm very blessed to have such a support system at my school.
Well, that's great. That's awesome. I mean, that's a huge part of the piece, right?
I'm
Like
that teacher too.
we
So
need we all need that support so that we can be successful.
Yeah, if I show dressed up like a pineapple, nobody even blinks an eye in my school anymore. Like, so I think that I kind of just get to do. But I got another teacher on board today, so I'm hoping that I can get our computer science I think CSA involved in doing it, and she saw the value in it for her class, and she teaches AP class. So.
Wow. And what about you, Jessie? How are you using it with your students? Or
starting with color codes. So I've used it with my Girls Who Code Club. They absolutely love Ozobot and have used them as kind of ambassadors as well, sharing their skills with other students. But most of the time, it's integrated with other content areas, and it's kind of a processing tool. So as Lisa was talking, I was thinking math, and we did some polygon activities that we melded some measurement with. And so again, using the codes, but they had to have so many codes and they had to have so many centimeters and they had to be a closed figure. So again, it's just processing that content.
Logic.
What is a polygon? How do I measure centimeters? I'm thinking of fifth grade activity we did with mapping out the conflicts or the wars or battles of the American Revolution and making the Ozobot retrace that trail. Again, they're practicing that history content or events leading up to the revolution or what have you, and using those color codes. I've never had a principal look at me funny when they walked in and saw us drawing. But again, too, you have to think about the width of your line. You have to code your codes right. If I try to code red over black, oops, and I've already gone over my centimeters, bummer. So again, it's just that processing, critical thinking, problem solving, and we usually work in partners, so you have to collaborate as well.
Yeah, I call that like the computing skills.
Absolutely.
And I do think one thing is I'm actually not a standardized test class, although I have all of our retesters. So I do have a little bit of a different timeline too to fit into, because Ozobot does take some time. But I think it's valuable time that if you spend that extra day or two throughout the year, it definitely, like you said, an administrator's not going to question it. I have my teaks to back it up if necessary, but great administrators are going to see the value in it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I've used it in middle school. I've used both actually, the Ozo codes and the Ozo Blockly. With the boards, without the boards, because I just wanted to try to mix it up and see like what the kids at that age group was drawn to. And it was all the same. Like like you were saying, like they were just, it was a motivator to engage them into the activity and the lesson. So for me, I actually had a lot of positive experience with it. Like we did stuff with geometry and transformations. I've done it with financial literacy. I've done it with science, just in story writing. So it's definitely a great tool, but it's interesting to see how people do it at the different levels.
I start my year with it.
Yeah, so like that's how, and there's so many creative things that I see online. And then I even think, oh, is that too elementary? Like, is that too much for a second or third grader? Like, can I take that and use that in middle school? So you start thinking about it. I actually found one lesson. I don't remember where it was that I found it, but I printed it out. It was about the Pokemon Go.
Yes, I've seen that one.
And it was cool because actually it had the board, it had the little Pokemon, and you had to program the Azobot to like get the Pokemon.
I did
It was pretty cool.
Harry Potter one like that for our Mix It Up day, the day actually before we got out for break. That's what we did. We actually did a Harry Potter one like that, but it was a lot more difficult. So I had like an easy version and a hard version, but all that logic of you have to turn back around, you have to do this, you have to do that, just all the processing that goes on, all the logical thinking. I mean, you have to see the value in that. Like, if you think about it from those terms, sometimes people just need the 4 markers put into those terms, I think is what's hard. So
I know when I sit down to plan with teachers, I always say, okay, so when do we want to use the bot? Is it during building background knowledge? Is it during metacognition? We're going to process our knowledge, we're going to practice our knowledge, or is there going to be a time where we're going to assess our knowledge and understanding? So that's always kind of the questions I bring to the table. My most favorite way to use Ozobot this year was with social emotional learning and social emotional skills. It was pretty powerful.
What did you do with that? Like, so give us an example. If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. So I work with Grand Forks Air Force Base students as well. And we have, of course, that's a unique population. They have a lot of change and a lot of loss, whether it be a parent that's been deployed for months or years, or a parent they've lost in deployment. So we had a unique situation on the air base this year where we were mourning the loss of 2 of our students in a 3rd grade classroom. So we did some discussion about mourning and loss and grief. And at the end of that, I'll just go ahead and share my screen. At the end of that, the students processed their mourning and grief and loss by creating memory maps. So they thought about those things that they had lost, and they created memory maps to show that loss and that grief. And then they were to focus on the positive things. So if they lost a friend, or they had to move, or they lost a relative, or they were missing a pet that they had to leave behind when they moved, they focused on the positive memories of that person, pet, place, and then created just a little Ozobot map to go through those memories.
And so did they use the Ozo codes on
They used the Blockly for that one. Yeah.
Okay.
They used the color codes for that one. Okay. And then later on in the year, we celebrated the International Day of Happiness. And then they used the Blockly coding to code the Ozobots to do a happy dance.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they didn't need a board for that one, obviously.
No.
No. I really like that because you're taking their memories and you're just kind of like pulling out the good ones
Yeah.
and you're
We talked
making
about
them think about that and reflect on that.
plucking the flowers of happy memories, those happy moments, and then creating a kind of like a garden path of memories. It was a really interesting activity. It took us 2 days, one day to just process our grief, the loss of those two students, and then celebrating those students with positive memories, and then they expanded to other grief and other loss.
Now, did they present this in this map, or like did they
They
talk
did.
about
They
it?
invited their parents to come in, and then they also had other students. The unique thing about the Air Base Schools is a K-8 building, so they invited other classrooms in, and of course that made my calendar busy because then the other teachers wanted me to come assist with some other lessons, and that's where we came into the International Day of Happiness. We did some activities with Ryan Reynolds' books where we sequenced the books. One example would be You, and so they made their own map about themselves, again using the color coding. So I just think it's a great way for students to process thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and they could do it with a cute little robot. What better way?
And like that, I mean, so you took something from grief and mourning and made it into a positive. You could probably even do something like, in the beginning of the school year, to introduce yourself, tell me about yourself,
Absolutely.
definitely. Because that's all about them, right? So
Yeah.
it gives me food for thought because, it's that's how we learn from other people and see how they use these tools. And that's something new. Like I would have never have thought of that. So I like that because it's taking something that's sad and you're making it into a positive using computer science, that's awesome. Wow. Okay, that's cool. So what about you, Lisa? I know you have a lot um, to share as well. So why don't you give us one example of how you're using it with your
I
high school students?
I actually use the first 2 days of school are usually kind of your note, your bookkeeping days, and I actually start Ozobot on the third day. I mean, on the fourth day, and we do it the fourth and fifth day. So we usually have a full week the first week, and I do the intro lesson with them. And so what I usually do is I kind of go through the lesson, and some kids, you have those high school kids like, Miss, what's the use of this? What are we gonna do? And I'm like, well, look at spin and tornado, and that's when I throw it in there. They're like, oh, order of operations. I'm like, yeah, yeah. And so it's really great because in high school, those first weeks, there's a lot of movement, a whole lot of movement. So it's doing something that's like a process standard and me kind of setting up my expectations, me introducing the Ozobots and getting them in their hands. So what I do the first day is I do the intro and I let them play. That's all they do the first day. And then the second day I have them do the get to the store challenge, which is in the intro activity. And then I have some brain teasers that I bought for, seriously, guys, are like $2.50. There's like tons of them on. This guy has sets of like 8 and 9 of them on Teachers Pay Teachers. And I bought those and they have to finish 1 or 2 challenges. They can pick which one they want to do. And they're all with the markers. So they are marker based, but it just gives them that nice intro into Ozobot. It's let them get that play. So for anybody that hasn't used them that might see this, they have to have playtime with Ozobot, like the social emotional thing. You were saying do it the first day. I think there would have to be more to it before you could get it in like the first week, but maybe the second week it's something you can do. But I do think that they need a little bit of guided playtime, and I encourage it. And I let them play, and I let them have their phones out to record it and share it and do all that kind of stuff. And that's one thing I'm really big into. So that's my big intro into it. And then I start out
like
with it.
you were saying, like you had aligned your math, your quadratic equations with it. Like, so how
Yes.
did you do that?
So what I do with the quadratics is one of the important things, even though it's no longer a TEK in high school, are the attributes of a quadratic. So a math person is definitely going to know you have your reflection points, you have your solutions, roots and zeros, completely necessary. 90% of the questions are still asked on that. So what they do is they code Ozobot at the attributes. and they have to code him to do something. So the first thing they have to do is they actually have to plan out that I have to make them make a rough draft of it. And that is points it's a very detailed rubric because it is a major grade, and 30 points of it is coding. So they can still pass, even if some kids have a really tough time, even with marker coding, and it's all freehand. So they have to do it on chart paper and make it, and they have to think about, like with coding, here's where some of that logic comes in. You have to draw the code ahead of time to make it execute at that point. So there's a lot of precision and a lot of accuracy that needs to come on, just like in solving a math problem. And so it's kind of like a real life connection, but it is a great activity. It takes some time. It's usually at least 2 solid days with a little bit of extra. But it also,
like 45-minute class periods,
45 to 52 minute periods. Some classes don't need the third day, but most groups do. All of my classes are inclusion or English language learners. I don't think that's right. ESL. Yeah, it's all different. And so they some of them need some extra time. Some of them, it doesn't matter if they're, just need that extra time. So usually on the third day is when we're going to grade for sure. And the first day, they generally don't get the bots out. It's usually the second day they get the bots out, but they've already had an introduction at this point. I think they've already done them 2 or 3 times throughout the year. So it's definitely something they're more familiar with at that point. I think it's something that could be done. Well, I think it'd be a little difficult with Ozobot because they have to have that curve. So it might not be something that can be done to code. I did use code this year, and I don't know if you want me to get into that now, but what I did is I did their shape tracer webinar, and I got all excited. So I assigned it to all my kids, and I said, you have to do 3 levels on your own. This was my great plan. And then I was like, oops, I assigned this. Does my district have it unlocked? So I had to go in and had to call one of the co-teachers whose kids go to our school. I'm like, can you have your kids see if they can get this? And so what I did is I sent it home, and I have a slide of it available for everybody to look at. And they basically had to just complete three levels. That's all I asked for. And I gave them bonus points for the other levels. Just because I wanted them to kind of have a connection, see how it went. It was like my rough draft of it, I guess, and my practice run. And they had to take a picture and do like thumbs up in front of the computer and take a picture to kind of prevent just sharing a picture, or take a screenshot with something else open that had their name on it, that I could identify it different. And I had kids that had not turned anything. I had 2 kids that hadn't turned in anything all year, do all 10 levels of it.
Oh, wow.
So it was really neat. It was easy. They could send me the picture and email. They could send me, I had one kid who didn't know how to do it. His mom sent me the message, and it was neat because they saw the connection, and all the feedback I had from kids was positive on it.
It's amazing what that cute little robot does for motivation and excitement and engagement. I know there's squeals of excitement when I bring it out, even in a 6th or 7th or 8th grade classroom. They just absolutely love it. And I know what you're saying about the precision too. If you're making something too loopy or too narrow on a curve, Ozobot gets confused. So you really have to think about, you are telling the robot what to do, and you have to be precise. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think when you bring out any type of manipulative, whether it's Azobot, it could be microbit, it could be
squares. Anything.
I mean, I think you're going to hook them on right away.
Yep.
It's just like, okay, so now you just have to run with it,
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I'm happy that you shared some of your lesson activities. So what I want to know from my fellow Azobot ambassadors here, since we are all under remote learning right now and school's closed, and I know we were talking before we went on, like STEM or technology kind of just dropped off as far as like aligning a tech or STEM with a core subject lesson, because it wasn't a priority. The priority was getting everyone connected
on tech,
and hopefully start some type of academic teaching. But going forward from this point on, in September, we don't know if we're going to be back face to face, and I don't want to see STEM or tech dropped off, because I really think that it's important for the kids to be exposed to those computing skills, as we were discussing before. So my question to you guys is, how would we use Azobot in a remote learning environment, with students at home using, this type of technology and align it with your lessons? So, how would that look like? How, would you just do unplugged activities with them, markers? Would you work with Ozoblockly? Lisa, you were saying you do the
I would,
introduction lesson, but like
yeah.
from remote learning, how would you do that?
Well, I know we don't have enough for all my classes to do one-on-one. And even at that, they're not wanting, like, they didn't even want kids to come up and pick up paperwork. So I would assume that robots would be with me. I would definitely do the 3 online opportunities, the Ozoblockly, the Ozo, was it Shape Tracer 1, Shape Tracer 2, and the Ozotown. And in all honesty, Shape Tracer 1, 2, and Ozotown are probably about 5 days total if you consider like actual time. They're not you're going to get them done in 5 minutes. So I would definitely integrate it that way, and then hopefully when we come back they have that connection, they've seen it. Or I also have an activity called Which One Doesn't Belong, so that's kind of introducing some block coding. So I would probably start throwing those out there. And so it's a picture of an Ozoblockly screen, and it'll have like 4 different codes, and you have to tell me, just like the Canada thing, which one doesn't belong. And it can be unlimited different things. It can be, oh, well, that one because he's going backwards. Well, that one because he's going at a different speed. That one because he's going at an odd number. That one because it's not on Roy G. Biv. There's just so many different options to have kids start looking and logical thinking with that kind of stuff, just to get them kind of started before we hopefully at some point go back and have the hands-on. I would love to do the one-on-one, but I just don't with tech itself. Trying to get the laptops into their hands is going to be without me there to do it that first time. I don't think it would be possible. I think they would need you there that first time, or at least need a video with you or a live, and we couldn't require our kids to meet with us.
Right.
So
Right. What about you, Jessie? What are your
I
thoughts
would
about that?
I would definitely, speaking for elementary and middle school, I think I would definitely use some of those wonderful unplugged activities that are available on Ozobot Educator Center. I'm thinking that coding your name was a great activity for students to start with. They get an understanding of coding. We did have the opportunity this remote learning time to at least embrace some online coding available through Discovery Ed, BrainPop, and then of course code.org. So I was pushing that out to teachers to share with students, and created some wonderful tech tips with hyperlinks, with how-to videos. So and I know Ozobot has some of those opportunities as well, where kids can code online. If I were in the classroom, I don't quite have enough for each one of my students, but I would hope to get there. I would love to be able to send an Ozobot home with all the kids, because they are already going home with a device. So they could either use the color coding or the Blockly. But right now I wouldn't have enough bots, and we wouldn't have enough as a district to do that. And so you always have to think of the equity, right? So if we have enough for, 500 kids and we're a district of 7,000, where's the equity? So yeah, that's the hard part. But anything we can do to push out coding and learning opportunities and get them engaged and thinking about coding and what they could possibly do with that robot when they returned to me would be awesome.
yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you think about remote learning, we have to consider making things available to the students, like creating how-to videos and giving them like maybe like a one-stop shop type of like a hyperdoc or whatnot, and then explain everything to them, and then maybe they can come up with something themselves. And
That's a good idea.
you'd be surprised, just having like an open conversation with them and giving them like a prompt, maybe like like you were saying, an unplugged activity, giving them a prompt, and then see what they come up with. Like they may end up like, they're the creative ones, they're the innovative ones.
Absolutely.
They should be the ones that think more out of the box than we are. We're kind of more linear, so yeah, maybe they would surprise us. I mean, it's hard. I think it's a challenge, because not having the bot it takes away
It's a
from
different game.
it's a different
Yeah.
experience,
Mhm.
you know. And like you were saying, like, I know I don't have enough bots. Like, I have a classroom set and I'm done, and the kids alternate. They come in and out of my classroom. So when I have one class, I have enough for one class. They leave, I got another class coming in, and I'm good for, you know, my class. But
Yeah.
it's hard, and that's why I think it's important to bring this up, because if we do continue with virtual learning in September, we don't want that to kind of drop off and be forgotten.
Mhm.
So, you know, doing unplugged activities, maybe having the kids create some type of like Rube Goldberg machine,
Yes.
you
Yeah. Or
know,
your own
and
scrub bot or whatever you can put
Yeah.
together. Yeah. Or
yeah,
even create your own Ozobot map that you can test when you come back to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool. You know, it's just, you know, I think the different levels, you have to bring it up another notch too. Like, you know, it's nice that this panel we have a variety of grade levels, because Lisa, you're at the high school, you can differentiate and change it up for the high school kids and challenge them a little bit more, and then we can bring it down to the middle school, elementary school. And I think it's a nice variety, because, you know, that's what we are all about. We have to make it differentiated.
Mhm.
You know, so now what do you think about what was I going to say? So we talked about traditional, you know, classroom environment with your lessons and how you use them, and I think they're great. And we talked about how students and teachers can use them in a remote learning virtual classroom. um, and we just did touch base on, you know, do you think it would be a good idea to let the students take it home?
Would
um,
love to.
it would be
I would love
ideal,
to.
but yeah,
Yes.
it would be an equity issue
Yeah.
at that point. So yeah, I think it all depends too. You know, like if you're in elementary school, and you're teaching 25 kids and you have a class set, maybe you get
Yeah.
permission to let, you know, the
Mhm.
kids take it home. If you have a class, I don't know, that would have to be up to administration. And like you said, because it's an equity thing as well. And, you know, that's a big factor in this whole circle of you know, issues that you have to consider.
Absolutely.
So but I'm really glad that you girls really came on today and shared. I think it's important to keep the conversation open, and to share these websites. You had mentioned code.org, Ozobot, CS First is another one. Tinkercad, you can code in there. Code Spaces, you can code in there. Scratch out on, you know, actually,
Trinket.
yeah, Trinket, Microbit.
Swift Playground.
Yeah, I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many. So, you know, and it's just something that you have to um, encourage, and just don't let it die out, because we're in remote learning. It's more important now than ever to continue teaching those kids the computing skills that they need, because we're learning that they are not really as tech savvy as you think they are.
Agreed. Agreed.
I
They're
agree.
good on their phones. But
I wasn't as tech
if you ask
savvy
them,
as I thought.
you know, like, it's funny if you ask them, can you fix this, or, you know, how do you do this, or, you know, how come this is not how come this is bombing out and not working, and they can't really help you. They can help you how to use your phone, and that's it. Like,
Mhm.
they
Yep.
can't give you anything else. So, you know, and that's a lack of a skill set that they need, you
Yeah.
know, like problem solving and troubleshooting, and, you know, that's all part of
And
that. So
that stuff you can hit remotely. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, in any
I
subject.
it's different. I do think one thing that's really, really important for any teacher that might hear this is please don't take our videos, make your own video. I think they need to hear our voices in there, because I did discover that. So you know, I think it makes a big difference. They need to hear that teacher, the few kids that are gonna watch it, you know, the others are gonna struggle their way through. But I do think it's really important. They hear you doing it, they see you doing it, they see you making mistakes. I don't know how to edit videos, so I think that is important. But this is all stuff we can hit. Like, there is a microbit simulator online that you can run. And I'm so glad you said that, because I was like, oh, I've had a class set of microbits I haven't been able to get out for 2 years now.
Oh, see,
you
now
know.
I've been using microbits in class.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
something
love
else.
It's another thing to teach them computer science, right?
Yeah. Well, and even from my angle, it's another thing to teach them problem solving and logic
Yeah,
and
exactly.
perseverance and
Yeah.
That's
and
the word I was
supervised
going to use.
learning.
Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you this before I let you go. Do you find now this is me? So, like we were talking before, during, at home, we're working from home, and I did design a few lessons in Azobot, and I don't have a board, right? Like, so I didn't have them. I didn't do anything with the markers or with paper or whatnot. I actually was designing a board using Google Drawings.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I was doing like story plot. So the story plot line it's straight and then it goes up as a,
Mhm.
it goes up and then down and it goes straight.
Yeah.
So
The
in my
concept.
mind, that was the board. So I drew it out in Google Drawings, but when I programmed it, I didn't have a board. I made the Azobot go into that direction. And I had it, do different things at different parts of the plot
Story.
diagram.
Mhm.
Do you find that the kids need the board if they are, programming, or do you see them just designing in on paper with marker, or are they using like a digital tool like Jamboard or Google Drawings to design their board?
All of the above.
Yeah.
It depends
Yeah.
on the skill of the student and what engages them. I mean, we have students that love to draw and doodle, and we have students that are all about the Google Slides or Google
Good.
Draw.
Okay.
And then we have some that really honestly see it in their head and can just go. And that's amazing to me because that's not me. But it's just beautiful to have all those differences in the classroom. And I was going to say too about kids problem solving. I do agree, Lisa, you should have your teacher voice out there and they should see you struggle and grow and learn. The other thing I like to do too is say to the students, the first student that can figure this out gets to teach us all. So that's another way too to kind of empower them to figure it out, because they do things with their Chromebooks. I would spend hours trying to figure out what they did to make that screen turn upside down.
They showed me how to do the first lesson in It's Learning because I never used It's Learning, and they had to tell me what to click and everything.
Absolutely, make them the teacher,
Yeah.
and they will rise to the occasion if given the opportunity.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't think like with my class and what my class is, if it was computer science, it'd be different. With math, I think they mostly need the board or to do it on hand. I do think that they need it in front of them in math. And I've always promised them, you're never going to have a math test you can't write on. You're never going to have a, worksheet you can't write on with me. So I do think it's important that they can put it down there or whatever. I brought all the stuff home because I'm just that teacher.
Yeah, I think
I
you said like in math, it's definitely you need to write
It's
it down. Yes.
and I want them to
Yeah.
write it down. Like that's
Yeah.
my goal.
It's
If
hard
they
to
could
measure in centimeters if you're not writing it out, right? You've got
Right.
to, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want to be in your head. Y'all don't want to be in
Yeah.
mine. I need to know
Yeah.
what you're doing to discover what you're doing wrong,
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I did with them. I do think it's important, especially when they're first starting, though. I think when they're first starting, they need to be able to draw it out or have that guided. I think having the guided one is really important. But I like them to have something to work from. If they can go off on their own, that's great. But too many of them will be like, I'm not sure where to start. And so I've been working on that this year a lot. So really with the quadratic one, they kind of have to come up with it all on their own, but I'll help them scale it and stuff. So
I mean, and
I think it's all of it.
that's a good way to differentiate
Computer
too.
science, I'd make them do it.
Yeah. I mean, but like for some kids, if they can visualize it in their head and then just make the bot go in that direction or command the bot to do those certain sound effects or movements, that's for me, that's acceptable because they could justify it.
It depends on the purpose of the lesson, right? If it's a math
Exactly.
lesson and they're supposed to make a path that's so many centimeters long and has so many different angles or whatever, yeah, you
Then it
better
has
be
to be
drawing it
written
out,
out.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're programming Ozobot to do a happy dance, I don't
Yeah.
think you can draw that out for me. So I think
Yeah.
it's just, I think it depends on the mission and purpose of your lesson, right? So what do I want the students to be able to know, understand, and do when we're done teaching?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Wow, this was great. I'm glad that you girls came on today.
Thanks for
It
inviting
was
us.
definitely a learning experience. I've gotten a lot of great ideas and try to pay it forward and helping other teachers use Azobot, for remote learning or whatever, and hopefully face to face
And
learning.
I've been throwing it at people for
Hopefully,
years. I'm just waiting on somebody
hopefully,
to catch it. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
my next door neighbor who's been with me for like 8 years now, she's finally like, I'm teaching algebra 2 and algebraic reasoning. Maybe I should get out. Oh, yes, you should.
Yeah.
You
Honestly,
know what I mean?
I've always worked with the second generation, the bit, right? I think
That's what I use. I use bit.
and I got an Evo like a couple like the class set. They upgraded my class set to Evos,
Nice.
and I was like, wow, this bot is totally different than the bit. Like it's got so much more to it. I was shocked. I had no idea. Like I
Yes.
knew, but once you start going in and playing with it, you really understand how much more powerful it is. It's
And then
more sophisticated than the bit.
once you introduce a couple Evos, they don't want to go back to the bit.
No, they don't. They don't. And it's
I
funny that you said that
think
because
so.
even in the Ozoblockly editor, you get to pick bit or Evo, and the command blocks are different because of the limitations of the bot. So it's definitely, yeah. I won't go back to bit anymore.
I'm
Definitely.
gonna keep. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like the bits are a lot more durable. Like I've had bits like run away from kids off the desk and stuff. So that is one thing. I just got the Evo class set and I'm super excited about it. But that is one thing I'm a little bit nervous about. Luckily, all of the stuff that I've done works on both because I accidentally programmed all of it on bit, not realizing I forgot to switch it over. Plus to have extras because that's a whole nother 25 Ozobots. But so I do feel like these do have a little bit more. Yes, I'm a total nerd. I have it sitting here. I'm a little nervous to see how they jump off desk because it's not intentional. My kids are always like, "Oh, like it's okay, it's okay."
Yeah,
It's all right. But so that is one thing. I'm not going to test it here. I have hardwood floors, so I'm a little nervous about. But yeah, they can do so much more. The kids are definitely that have had me before are going to be like, "Whoa, this is."
Yeah, it's a big difference. That's for sure.
Hopefully, the kids that have had me before are going to be all get to see them again.
Whoever has you will be excited about it.
Yes.
I was saying, like, I'm hoping I'm back into my classroom to be able to do it. I'm coming up with so many ideas. I'm just praying or hoping that we get to go back in there and I get to do all this stuff. So
you know what? It's funny. It's like, I don't want to call it downtime, but because it's definitely not downtime. Like I've been more busy now than ever, but it's a different, right? It's a different kind of busy. So like some of the time that I've had at home, I was working with other teachers to design lessons for Azobot, and I would never have had that opportunity in school to get together with them. So for me, for them to tell me, oh no, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm like, okay, I designed a lesson, I tested it, it worked, boom, I'm done. Like it was that easy. It wasn't like I need teachers to like, tell me what they use or what they want to align it with, and I can create the lesson.
Absolutely.
So for me, this time being home and collaborating with the teachers on lesson planning was very productive because
and the webinars.
The webinars, and I've learned more about Evo. I've learned more about
Ozoblockly.
Ozoblockly. So for me, like I tried to take this opportunity and learn as much as I can, and
absolutely,
so that, you have to evolve with it, So, well, ladies, thank you very much for being on. I'm so thankful that you came on today. You are definitely in my circle for Azobots. If I need anybody to reach out to, you know who I'm going to be calling, right?
Absolutely. I need stuff to do. All my summer stuff was canceled. All my STEM camps were there. I was going to practice all this stuff. So
yeah, so maybe we'll connect.
I need ideas.
We can try, But I'm going to wrap up the show. So let me share my screen real quick. Well, let me get my website open first. So let me go back. All right, let me share my screen. All right, so if you'd like to visit my website, you can visit thesweettalk.com. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, my newsletter. You can follow me on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, and subscribe to my newsletter. The latest episode will be on the homepage as well as the podcast. You can check out my new book that I wrote with Alice Keeler, Stepping Up to Google Classroom. It's to help targets beginners. So it's 50 steps for beginners to get started. And that's available on Amazon. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please fill out the guest inquiry form and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if you would like to sponsor the Sweet Talk, you can become a sponsor. Just fill out the form, or you can make a donation through PayPal or Patreon as well. Check out my Jamboard page. A lot of people are asking me about Jamboard. So you can go to the page about Jamboard. I have a lot of resources here. And, if you have any questions about Jamboard, you can just reach out to me and ask me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And that concludes my show tonight. So thank you, ladies, for being on again. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I will see you later. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Good night.